G'day battlers, and today we're jumping into the first ever Silph Arena Factions field meta, and if you have no idea what that means, check out my video up there about what the Silph Arena Factions are, what is actually going on, but today we are going to be looking at the Floating City Battlefield meta. So this was actually the same meta that was used in the All-Star Invitational back in January, so I do already have my battles from the All-Star Invitational up on this channel. Again, they're going to be linked up there, or they're going to be linked at the end of the video, in the description probably, so if you want to see some kind of battles, seeing this meta being put into action, that battle video is going to be there. But jumping straight into it, the Floating City meta is another sort of classic typing meta where you have ground types, flying types, steel types, and normal types, with bans on Mythicals, Shadows, Regionals, Galarian Stunfisk, Skarmory, Altaria, Bastiodon, and Registeel. So this meta is really similar to the Sunrise Cup, which was the first cup of the Silph Season 3, because that had ground types, flying types, normal types, fire types, and grass types. And the only good fire types were like flyers, which is actually going to be the same in this one because flying type is allowed. And then grass types, you know, they were around, but there's still a lot of the main grass coverage is going to be in here in Ferrothorn, because that's got the steel typing as well. So it's going to be a pretty similar meta to that. But let's just jump into the Meta Simplified infographic. After you subscribe, of course, because we're going to be putting out a whole bunch of cool Silph content. Just before we get into the infographic though, I want to throw one more thing. At the end of this video, I'm going to be talking about a pretty big Silph live stream that's going to be happening in a few days time. So if you are going to leave the video at any point, you're done hearing about the Floating City, I definitely recommend that you just skip to the end of the video to hear that announcement. The progress bar is going to have all the timestamps, so you can skip straight there. But yeah, let's finally jump into the meta. And now that we've all got our screenshots, let's jump straight into it. So it's a really simple meta, and I've actually taken a lot of this from the Sunrise Cup because it's a really similar meta and it really plays out in a similar sort of way. So essentially we have three main groups here. So along the top we have the flyers, along the bottom left in the green box we have the anti-flyers, and then in the bottom right red box we have the anti-flyers, which is the exact same groupings that we had in Sunrise Cup. Again, it's very similar. So jumping straight into it though, as you would kind of expect, the anti-flyers are going to beat the anti-flyers, and then the anti-flyers are going to beat the flyers, and the flyers are going to beat the anti-flyers. Not all of these matches are like hard cut, like not all of that blue box is going to beat all of that red box in all shield scenarios, but I'll talk about that a little bit more as we go into the video. But first I just want to look at the flyers though, because you'll see there is a white arrow that's going straight, this way, straight through the flyers, from Zapdos through to Mantine, Articuno, Mandibuzz, Drifloon, Pelipper, and Talonflame. And that is because generally along that line, that is the order that they're beating them. So Zapdos is beating all of those flyers, like just all of them. Mantine is beating most of them except Zapdos. Articuno is beating most of them except Zapdos and Mantine. And there are a few exceptions in there. So one arrow that I have drawn on there is the fact that Talonflame does beat Articuno, because I think that's probably an important one to point out, because Talonflame is a really powerful Pokemon, just in general in Great League. Like, it's been all over GBL, you know, it got banned in the Remix Cup as well. So it's a really big Pokemon and you should expect to see a bunch of that. And so I just thought it was important to point out that it does beat Articuno in the one shield. Also Drifloon and Pelipper, they kind of have a slightly better matchups up against Mantine than this would show, because Mantine is one of those Pokemon that looks really good in the simulations, because it, like, you know, in the sims it always lands the Bubble Beam bait, your opponent shields the Bubble Beam and then lets an Ice Beam go through. So Mantine is not going to be as good as it's shown on this infographic, but that is where it sits in the sims, so you know, can probably bring it down a few pegs. But this is, it's kind of like a tier list sort of to how good the flyers are, but obviously there are a bunch of other advantages in these flyers. So for example, Zapdos is going to get absolutely walled by Unova Stunfisk down in the bottom left green box, whereas another Pokemon like even just Mantine, for example, even though it is going to hate the discharge a lot more than Zapdos because it is the water and flying typing, Mantine's able to do more damage back to Stunfisk because it has that Bubble Beam, it has that Ice Beam that can actually do some serious hurt onto Stunfisk, so it has a bit more playback. Pelipper is another one where that also has the water flying typing, so really hates discharge, but does have the water weather balls that can really add up some pain onto that Stunfisk, whereas yeah, Zapdos is just, Stunfisk does not have to do a single thing, can almost just like Thunder Shock down, just tap Thunder Shock away. I guess Mud Bomb is also an option. You can kind of go for either actually in this meta, but that is talking about other stuff that is in flyers. We are still looking at the flyers for now. Mandibuzz is a really bulky option, and one that you're really kind of going to have something to cover. Like, you kind of need to be prepared for Mandibuzz, because Mandibuzz, I mean, just seeing it in the All-Star Invitationals, especially seeing Meron P use it, who was in my team, the Squirtle Squad, it can just take so many hits. It is absolutely an insane Pokemon, and it's basically acting as your 3rd, 4th, and 5th shield. So you really have to be careful about that. I did kind of skip over Articuno. Articuno is a really strong pick where like it's got Icy Wind, it's got Hurricane as well. Hurricane you will need an Elite TM to use, because I don't think you can get a Hurricane Articuno naturally under 1500. I might be wrong about that one, but it's a really strong pick. It can do a lot of really good things and fight back against pretty much everything down in the bottom 2 boxes. Not so much Probopass. Probopass is a bit of a wall, but it can do a lot of damage there, and you really need, if you don't have a good hard counter to Articuno, Articuno works as a really good safe swap. You know, swap it in, get an Icy Wind off, maybe land a Hurricane, sneak through. It's a really good safe swap. Drifloon, it's got Icy Wind, it's got Shadow Ball. You can be really spicy and run Ominous Wind, but it's just kind of another sort of Pokemon that's doing the same sort of thing as Mantine and Articuno, where you're getting their debuffs through, you're kind of making some more dynamic gameplay, because that's the way it goes. Pelipper is just a dude that can just spam out those Weather Balls. It is like decent in this meta. I think it's kind of down towards the back end just because it doesn't have that great matchup up against the other flyers, but it does make up for that being a little bit better up against some other stuff. And it obviously does beat Talonflame because Water Weather Balls in that Firebird for some damage. And yeah, Talonflame, it has the option to hit Brave Bird, which again is pretty much threatening most things in the meta. There's only a few things that don't care, and then stuff like Probopass, like Flame Charges, are going to do some damage there. If Probopass has Rock Throw, Talonflame's in some serious trouble there, so it's going to be a bit of give or take there. And there are actually some of the matchups in the green box that the Flyers do win. So Wigglytuff, for example, is actually going to lose to Articuno, Mantine, and Talonflame in the one shield. Just for example, like there's a lot of sort of matchups that are kind of hidden in there that it's not as cut and dry. This is just kind of to simplify it down, show the general matchups. And I mean, like, you know, Stunfisk actually loses to Articuno because of this just straight Icy Wind. It's going to be doing that super effective damage, able to take that thing out. Whereas, you know, Zapdos again cannot do that at all. Quagsire is actually going to lose to Drifblim in the one shield if Drifblim can land that Shadow Ball. And then I think Pelipper is a similar situation where Pelipper needs to land the Hurricane to take out Quagsire, but if it does, then it will be able to take it out. So yeah, just be mindful that this isn't a definitive, everything on this graphic is the exact matchup. Steve, I was playing my Quagsire up against Pelipper and Pelipper was able to take me out. What the heck? Yeah, it's not cut and dry. This is just to kind of give you an idea about how, I guess I at least see the Floating City battlefield. Moving on to those anti-flyers though in the green box, we've got Quagsire, Wigglytuff, Stunfisk, and Probopass. Now, Quagsire, just really quickly going through this like tiny little box of matchups. Quagsire, it's going to beat Stunfisk and Probopass. That isn't too much of a surprise. It's got that Earthquake that can do big damage and doesn't care too much about any of their charge moves. Going to lose to Wigglytuff though, because Wigglytuff just can be able to charm it away. And then Wigglytuff is also going to be able to charm away the Unova Stunfisk. Again, just not really doing too much damage. Like Stunfisk is more of a bulky Pokemon, doesn't have too high of an attack stat. So even though it's getting its Mud Bombs and Thundershock, discharges off pretty quick. They're just not really adding up enough. And then Probopass, gonna wall that Wigglytuff because that steel typing. Gonna be able to take that thing out, especially if it's got Magnet Bomb. It is just going to wreck away. But yeah, those sort of matchups. Again, we kind of already went through the sort of some of the oddities in the with relationships with the Flyers, like Articuno beating Unova and Stunfisk, for example. But for the most part, you're probably gonna, and obviously there's only 3 boxes on this graphic, so it's not like you can pick one from each box and then you've got a team. You need to fill out 3 more Pokemon, and there are some Pokemon that aren't on this graphic as well, like Empoleon. I guess Empoleon would kind of go more over on the red box sort of deal, but just be mindful that there are some other Pokemon as well. But let's just talk about the red Pokemon, because I do think the green is generally straightforward after we've gone through the fact that yeah, some of those flying matchups aren't as cut and dry. And the red box is where a lot of stuff kind of flips around a little bit. So Vigoroth is just, we all know Vigoroth, what Vigoroth can do. It has Counter, which is a really good move. It's got Body Slam, which is really spammy. Plus it has the normal typing, which means that the Body Slams get stabbed, so it does an extra times 1.3 damage. They come out really quick, they come out pretty hard, and they can pretty much flip heaps of matchups. Vigoroth is like the safe swap. Like, just in Pokemon Go, it is the ultimate safe swap. And the only thing that it really doesn't want to come back into it switching is Drifloon. And realistically, that's the only reason that Drifloon is a big thing in this meta, because Vigoroth is a threat, and you really just want to hardwall that Vigoroth, maybe discourage Vigoroth safe swaps, maybe discourage Vigoroth showing up on teams, maybe you're trying to push them into using their Vigoroth in the lead, because if Vigoroth gets itself up against Drifloon, it is Vigoroth's worst day of its life. Like, he's just able to do absolutely nothing, and Drifloon is just going to slowly Icy Wind it away, get a ton of energy to go into the next matchup as well. Obstagoon, though, is one that does have that Drifloon coverage, and I think that's kind of why Obstagoon gets used a little bit, because it does have that play up against the Drifloon that lots of people are using as a sort of anti-fighter. Plus, both of them are going to be beating the Ferrothorn with the Steel typing. Both of them are going to lose to the Swampert, because Swampert can just add up that damage. I think they actually might beat Swampert in one of the shield scenarios, but I can't remember, so we're going to move on. And then Ferrothorn is in there as well, who is going to beat that Swampert, as you would expect, because Grass type beating Water type, even with the Steel type, it's just not enough for Swampert to be able to take that one out. Vigoroth is the only one that's like super safe swappy. Ferrothorn has a little bit of play up against that blue box if it can get its moves right, so generally I would recommend Ferrothorn running Thunder in this cup, and if you can land that Thunder on something like a Mantine or a Pelipper, or even a Drifloon, like that's pretty huge. So that can definitely do a lot of damage back up towards the Flyers. Obstagoon has that play up against Drifloon. None of the other ones are too scared about it, but I guess Zapdos and Articuno, because they're kind of squishy Pokemon, do still take a fair bit of damage from the Obstagoon. Swampert doesn't have much play up against any of them except for the Talonflame. Actually, maybe Zapdos a little bit as well. But Talonflame is really just the one that a single Hydro Cannon is really raining on Talonflame's day. But yeah, for the most part, this red box does have the win up against green box. The Vigoroth vs Wigglytuff is another one that's kind of a little bit back and forth as well. I think if you get to the 2-shield, Wigglytuff is going to be able to take that one out, unless Vigoroth like is able to sneak in an extra counter, because I remember piggybacking and stuff being a huge thing back in Jungle Cup when Vigoroth kind of first came to big prominence. But yeah, this is kind of all of the basic matchups in the floating battlefield meta as I see it. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you think I've missed something, if it's totally egregious that I didn't put like Empoleon in this graphic. This is obviously just kind of a preliminary look, give you a bit of an idea. I'm probably gonna see a bunch of you in the battlefield as well, taking me on in this meta. So I'm coming for you. I kept all of the secret strats to myself. I don't have any other secret strats. But yeah, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, especially that subscribe one. Thank you to my patrons and supporters over on Twitch, which took me a little bit of a second to get this graphic up, and I need to move myself out of the way of the Twitch thing. But now I do want to quickly talk about that live stream that is going to be happening as well. Actually, I'm just going to let this video explain it. So yeah, 10 content creators, 10 commanders. It's going to be a really good time, and basically all of us are going to be trying to convince you as to why this particular commander is the best. We're going to have, we're going to have some good discussion there, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So see you there in less than 2 days from this video. Be sure to subscribe, notification bell, and all that to see it when it comes out, and I'll see you in the next one.